Forgot to unmute myself. All right, my apologies, everybody. Um, yeah, we had a technical problem with my internet. It dropped. I don't know what happened there, but yeah, I'm gonna continue the video now.
Draw this stupid thing. It's an accelerator. Third time was the best one. It's midnight. He's at the Westgate
All right, Fox.
Los Alamos
Back up.
lab or something. I can't remember the name of it, but it's a big lab facility.
The research facility in Los Alamos?
Research facility. It's where they build bombs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, where they built the A-bomb.
Exactly. There's a T-shaped building there, and it's 7 floors, and on the top of the roof, there's a little shack. That's where the guard stands. And just below that is the director's office. It's right in the center, faces out on the whole lab. And I said I drew that T-shaped building, then I put a lab facility all around it and a row of trees down both sides of the road and big parking areas. He's in the T-shaped building, top floor. He's in the director's office, smoking one of the director's cigars with his feet crossed up on the desk. That's exactly where he was, exactly what he was doing, okay? But my last target, they came back. That just blew them out of the box. So they came back and said, he's working on something. We don't know what it is. Tell us what it is. I drew 2 things. The one thing I put in a big van, big tractor trailer, and I drew what is basically microwave equipment, very detailed, inside the van, pointed out of the open end of the van at a bunch of stuff on the ground at a certain beam width. Unfortunately, I gave them the frequency, but they had to interpret it. The frequency I gave them was for something else, but it actually matched exactly the frequency of the microwaves that he was using. And the bandwidth that he was projecting was dead on, 60 degrees, and he was cooking electronic equipment at distance using this, okay? And it was a brand new piece of equipment and everything. And so I drew all that, and I said, but he also has something to do with the solar array down the road. There's a big tower, and there's a whole lot of mirrors, like 300, 400 mirrors, all pointed at the tower. And they're made up of pieces that computers can refigure them to project a perfect beam to the tower. And on top of the tower, they create a huge energy burst. And they're testing energy production using the sun. My monitor said, well, which one is he working on? I said, well, that's kind of his hobby. Well, they came back immediately and said, wow, he did an amazing thing with a target, but our guy has no hobbies. My feedback is they're going to allow me to see what he's done. And we're driving in the car. We had a driver taking us there, and we're driving in this car. And we came over a hill, and this guard put a guard thing down. He said, I'm sorry, I can't let you go any further. We're testing the solar array. And Dr. May turns to me and he says, I wish I had a bag. I'd put it over your head. I don't know why you got that too. But we sat there. You could smell the ozone in the air, and they built this like miniature sun on the tip of the tower. It really impressed me a lot. They lift the thing. We're going down the road, and there's this car coming down the road on the left. We get out. I said, didn't we just see you coming from the solar array? And he says, yeah, that's kind of my hobby. I go over there for lunch. Said that on tape. We got him. We got a nice check for research from this group of people. They never talked to us again. It scared them so badly, I think. They'd never had anything done like that.
Do you think it scared them on a security level?
Absolutely.
We had what was called a scientific oversight committee, and in the back of this volume, they're named now. They were the who's who of American scientists of that era, 2 Nobel laureates, and they were, in fact, eligible to be on our scientific oversight committee, given they had to be skeptic to be part of this committee, but they had to be open-minded.
Of the 12 people used in the Scientific Oversight Committee, there are a few reputable and notable names. Dr. Daryl Bem, originator of the self-perception theory, who studied physics at MIT and obtained his PhD in social psychology at the University of Michigan. Dr. Melvin Schwartz. Dr. Schwartz received a Nobel Prize in Physics for the development of the neutrino beam and his work on particle physics. And Dr. Philip Zimbardo, a Yale graduate and professor who is more commonly known to have created the Stanford Prison Experiment. These were some pretty heavy hitters in the scientific community.
So there were 12 of them. And what they did under my watch is they would review, we had to submit our protocol to them before we did anything for them to review it. We were very good at that. So that was a round robin that happened rather fast. The second part of their three-part system was unannounced drop-in privileges, which they actually never use. They're all business scientists. But the third part was thrilling. I loved it. My first year as the director, I had 35 separate projects for $1.875 million. And I had to write reports on every damn one of those. So I spent the whole time writing reports rather than doing science. We had to submit our final report on each one of these things to the Scientific Oversight Committee. And they were to criticize it as if it were a journal publication to their favorite journal.
Understood.
Man, they really went after us. And their reports are in here. You can read what the hell they said. They would come to SRI and then later at SAIC, and we'd spend 2 days in talks. I got to tell you, in my whole career as an academic type character, it was positively thrilling. In fact, at the end of the day, almost none of them thought that this stuff was, more work needed to be shown that it was real or not. That's their conclusion. However, they said, we do the best science one can possibly do in today's world. They gave us credit for that. Now, one personal story of that, one of my physics colleagues and dear friend, unfortunately, he's no longer with us, a guy by the name of Melvin Schwartz, won the Nobel Prize in Physics with Leon Lederman. He did some really fancy stuff. I invited him and his wife down to have dinner with my wife and I. And he asked, when I first invited him, he said, you know, I think what you're doing is all bullshit. And I said, yeah, I know. That's why I want you on the committee. Well, what if, after watching you for a year, I've decided that it's still bullshit? I said, if you can convince the other members of the committee of that to be true, what I will do is resign immediately and come to work with you at Brookhaven National Lab and go back to doing physics. He said, done. I said, no, we're not even close to done. What are you talking about? What if, after watching us for that period of time and talking to other members of the committee, you think there's something worthy of study? I said, now that's an interesting question. If that comes out, I will spend some fraction of my career helping you to figure out how it worked. And he did that up to a year before he passed away.
He was willing to not only look at it, but look at it and scrutinize it and then work in favor of it. I mean, that's incredible.
Well, I'm going to go one notch better for you here. So Nolly and I put together 2 books, and they're only sold as a set called Extrasensory Perception Support Skepticism in Science. I love skeptics. I learn more from skeptics than I do from crazy-ass believers who believe everything. I invited 2 skeptics to contribute to our volume 1. Yeah, Christopher French, he's a British guy, and I invited him. He was the first person to agree to be a co-author in this book. And the other guy is a fellow by the name of E.J. Wagenmakers. Do you know the name Daryl Bem by any chance? Daryl did probably the most important experiment so far in history in Psi. He had 1,000 participants, and he's a social psychologist. When you have a bunch of students learning social psychology, you usually provide some sort of a stimulus. You poke somebody in the ribs or flash something in their eyes, and they respond to it, right? And it's always the stimulus comes before the response. Well, Daryl is pretty clever. He said he's going to invoke the response before he even generates the stimulus, just reverse the time. And we use measures today called effect size. And what surprised the whole world and just shook the psychology community to its core, because this guy is a well-respected psychologist. Quality of the effect going forward in time or going backward in time were equal valid, the same validity. There's a lot of very, very good research having nothing to do with Stargate.
That's why when I hit the end of my 7 years in the unit, I had every bit of an intention to go into the science side. I wanted to know more about why, how, who done it. It was a hard decision for me to make. I made a decision to demonstrate it live on television.
最強の千里眼ジョン・マクモニーグル。人は彼を地球の裏側を見る男と呼ぶ。アメリカにいながらにして海外への投資的中率 80%。
I remember the first program I did in Japan was called Battle TV. And they would have people on who claimed they could do certain things and have two panels. One panel over here was all like post-grads out of college. Colanders on their head, springs with the stars and buttons and stuff bouncing around. This panel over here were the ones against, and they all wore suits and ties. And at the beginning of the show, the guy stepped up to the microphone and gave a very impassioned speech in Japanese. He was the head of the physics department at the University of Tokyo. And what he said was, I will come in here after the show and prove there's a trick. If I can't, I'll resign my position at the University of Tokyo. He actually said that on national television. Tokyo, 70 million viewers. So I'm sitting there, and I'm going to display remote viewing, and the whole place was anti-success. Never going to happen, right? Showed me a picture of this woman, and they said she's got a film crew, and she left early this morning for somewhere in Japan. She had permission to use the bullet train, so she could be anywhere. We want you to tell us where she is. So I said, okay, and I drew it. In fact, I said it looks like a pond, but it's a bathing area. It's probably neck high in water, and it's surrounded on the outside by fake things, a fake fence made out of concrete, some concrete trees, and like a little tiny tea house modeled up against the wall. And I remember the guy running the program said, he took the mic and he said, "Oh, Joe-san, that's not possible. We have no fake trees in Japan." And I was really detailed about it too. And he does all this stuff. So I'm sitting there thinking, no, I'm absolutely screwed here. And they get the woman on the phone, and you can hear her voice, and she's laughing. And the guy says, "Well, why are you laughing?" She says, "They just stole my towel. I'm trying to get it back." And she pops up on the TV, and she's up to here in water, and she's got a towel wrapped around her front. She's in a pond. Behind her, against the wall, are the fake fences and stuff. And they overlaid my tea house. It's identical.
Wow.
Absolutely identical. I have a film somewhere in the pile of film. And everybody's dead silent. And these guys that are on my side jumped up on the tables and started crumping up their papers that they were supposed to evaluate me on. And they're throwing them at the guys in suits.
実物と見比べていただきたい。誰が見ても一目瞭然。細部に至るまで現場の風景を読み取ることができるのである。
The guy came in 4 days in a row and went over the films frame by frame by frame. Could find no trick. Had to admit that it was probably real. And walked away. Didn't want to talk about it after that. I asked the guy in the studio, did he resign his position? No. But he'll probably never be on the TV in our
He'll never question
studio again.
Oh my goodness.
Suddenly, I'm discovered by Japan, and so they invented this whole thing of looking for missing people.
Yeah.
And I went ahead and said, sure.
伝統系の図書館ガラス張りだ。
特徴的な形の建物を発見。目の前に現れたのはマクモニーグルのイラストとほぼ一致する建物。
合ってるよね。
So, if I didn't get this first page right, no remote viewing.
Done.
Okay, done. All that's dead right.
What? We're talking, you're in the one age range. You're 58 to 59 years, male.
Age 58 to 59, height, weight, black hair, brown eyes, normally wears a suit and tie, lives alone, work requires something, jacket and tie, partial pension or money for something, and then works part-time at a hotel.
And so, whoa, and so all of that was dead on.
Yeah, and then this is an outline of the coast.
Right.
And what I do is I point to where the city is. Then I start drawing a map of the city, how to get in or out, and what's around it. Then in the city, I would put in, this is a bad copy, I'm sorry. I put in all the raised roads, all the subways, all the interconnecting roads to things like hospitals, police stations, all that kind of stuff. And then I'd say, there are some buildings here, and I'd point to the buildings. There'd be this one, this one, this one, this one. I would draw those buildings because they would identify the city, okay? They only existed in that city alone, like a building with a hole through it, a building with a big garden, that kind of stuff.
これもマクモニーグルのイラストとほぼ一致。残りもそのオブジェのある場所から見ると、アリーナの形はマクモニーグルの投資と驚くほど一致しているの。
Then I'd say, okay, straight out from subway east entrance, and I would name the subway stop. When you come out of the subway entrance, which is right here, you go a certain way. You go down this road, you make a right on the 4th road, you zigzag through here and continue to this building. This is the front of one of the buildings. There's a lot more detail in this building, but you can't see it because of the. This is also a building that's there.
And you even see scale. You even put people there.
This is a castle in the building, tower with trees all around it. It identifies. Each city had different things. This is the apartment he lives in, 3rd floor. Okay. There's 16 apartments. He's in the 3rd floor. This is another building, or group of buildings. Big Ferris wheel right next to the water. Osaka would be here, and this would be the actual city.
Target.
That's the target city.
Wow.
So that's a pretty small little city right outside of Osaka. Osaka is probably like this.
Right.
And so that's probably situated next to Osaka. Tokyo's up here.
That's incredible how
So
specific.
And then in my statement, I'd say make a turn here, go so many yards or so many kilometers, make a turn here. And they went to the best detective agency in Tokyo for these things. And they refused to do it. They didn't want to do anything with psychics. So when they saw the first program on television, the studio told me that the other detective agency wanted to step up now.
Yeah, I bet.
And so they showed the guy in the next film wearing a suit with white gloves, bowing and taking the information, you know, and they got to know me really well. And they're about 80% correct, the viewing.
Wow.
But we found only half the people.
Right. 24 people.
Things.
They used you.
Find 12.
You ended up finding 12 of 24 missing people in and around Japan.
Yeah. Or no, all over the world.
All over the world.
One of them was a woman and her daughter, and I put her in China, and she had been kidnapped off the streets of Tokyo by the North Koreans. They would kidnap them, take them to North Korea to teach Japanese to the troops. Now, I put them in China. It turns out she and her daughter, when they escaped, didn't go south to South Korea. They went north and crossed the river into China and got jobs in a hotel in a brand new place where they had built a couple golf courses and some big hotels. It was a place where businessmen could go and relax, okay? They were working, keeping the hotel. So the studio put together a film crew and went into China to the business place and found not both of them, found the woman and made her part of the film crew and brought her out. Okay, so they got the woman out.
Her out.
But she didn't know what happened to her daughter because her daughter chickened out crossing the river because she heard a noise. Her daughter showed up 2 weeks later. So they brought the woman and her daughter out. And what they did is somebody went back in and found her daughter. Wow. She had eventually crossed the river. So they brought both these people home. So, I mean, it was stuff like that. And the dead guy, finding his burial site and other things. There was A guy, his younger brother worked for an investment firm, and he made a bad mistake. He made an investment and he lost it all. It was like $50,000. And he thought he would get fired because he lost the money. So he took off. He changed his identity, changed his name, everything, and disappeared. Now, they told his brother about it, his older brother. His older brother went to the company and gave them $50,000, paid his debt off. Later, he got it back because they found out it was just an investment mistake. He wanted to find his brother, but nobody could find him because he had changed his identity, everything. And I got him to this hotel that had 3 towers. And they were just simple little one-room with bathroom apartments. They were for working men in one tower, working women in another tower, some other people in another tower. And so all the rooms looked the same. So I had a lot of trouble with that. I was getting, and so they said, well, we're not going to be able to finish this then if you can't tell us which part. I said, no. What you need to do is you put the older brother right in front of the main doors between 6 and 8, because that's when everybody comes home and changes and goes out to some beanery or something to eat.
Intercept them.
Right. Hide the camera in some bushes, which they did. And his brother saw him come through the door, and they stopped. They looked at each other. They had all this on film. They looked at each other, and then they came together and hugged. And they were both crying and everything, which they never do in public.
Yeah, no.
But they're crying and all that. And he explained to him, you can come home, you can go back to work, everything's fine, And they just went up to his room together. And it was all on film. It took probably 4 years of work to do it all. But we found a lot of stuff.
And that was something that I guess Uri Geller was involved in too initially, right? As a magician,
yeah,
I'm very familiar with Uri.
I share dad advice with millions on TikTok, but I'm also a dad at home. So from one parent to another, here's something I learned. When your teen joins TikTok, they're protected with over 50 preset safety and privacy settings. Accounts all start private, and for those under 16, there are no direct messages. And only friends can comment on their videos. Because when safety comes first, discovery can follow. Hey, even dads need dad advice sometimes.
2 pizzas and 2 sides for just $19.99? Domino's Perfect Combos got you covered.
Plan your trip at wildernessresort.com.
The President's Day sale is on now at Kenny's and your local Ashley. It's the perfect time to upgrade your sleep and receive these historic deals. Right now at Kenny's, enjoy presidential savings on a wide selection of mattresses. Plus, get a free foundation with qualifying mattress purchase. That means better support, better comfort, and a better night's sleep every single night.
But then, it crosses into a weird territory where you meet a guy like Uri Geller.
2 things I'll tell you, okay? One is he was never actually blessed by anything he did when he came to SRI International. He wanted it all to be done in the lab by them, and they refused because they know about him, okay? So he brought his own guy along with him, and they did experiments in the building, and they called that observed and condoned by SRI International, which it was not. Never was.
Uri Geller must be on the premises someplace.
Yes, Geller. He was a bright child. My best pupil.
Tell him about psychokinesis.
The CIA told us never to deal with him ever again.
This is Uri Geller. One of the types of demonstrations that Geller likes to do is to sit with a group of people and attempt to send a number to various people in the room. With Uri Geller, this is Edgar Mitchell, who, with his eyes covered, is trying to pick up the number that Geller is sending. Also, we see Wilbur Franklin of Kent State, Harold Putoff and Russell Targ of SRI, along with Don Schuich, Vice President for Research at SRI. Dr. Schuich is trying to receive and then write down the number that Geller is sending. In this case, Schuich is successful in picking up the number. Of course, this is not a laboratory experiment since the activity is completely under Geller's control.
As a magician, I'm very familiar with Uri Geller's work. Growing up, he was a big inspiration to a lot of mentalists and magicians out there. And although his career's been incredibly controversial, the fact does remain that the CIA did study Uri Geller's work, especially during the time that they brought in a lot of natural psychics. So Joe and Ed do have their reservations about Uri's work, but I thought it only fair to contact Uri and to let him tell his own story, because some of the things that happened during that time, to this day, remain unexplainable.
In the early 1970s, Geller became a superstar, the most famous psychic in the world.
Hi, Chris.
Hello, how are you?
Fire away. Let's start the little interview. Look, Chris, you know very well that I'm hugely controversial. Debate all the time about Uri Geller. And basically, I have to thank the skeptics who created the enigma around me, the mysteriousness, the strangeness, the quirkiness. All those people who tried to debunk me, like the James Randys, etc., basically created my career. And it was really Johnny Carson who kicked my career off, ignited it, because nothing happened, nothing worked on the Johnny Carson.
Okay, let me rest a little, all right?
All right.
And that show made me, whether I'm a magician or not, it's not important now. But an ordinary person like you can be a great magician. You can be a David Copperfield. But if you're intuitive, one can learn remote viewing. You know, you asked me a good question. Is it a vibration? Is it an energy? Is it a ray? What is it that leaves our mind, goes to a location and comes back? I really can't answer you because I don't know. But what I do know is we bring up that, verified, credible evidence, and it's been tested a million times. And these agencies know that this works. These are very interesting books, Psychic Files of the CIA. These are drawings that I was asked to do while I was in shielded room. This is CIA, this is mine. I started bringing information back to the researchers. This was financed by the CIA, through, I would say 1970, 71, the Stargate project started. Basically, people were trained to send their mind through space and time and bring back information. Most of the information that we brought back, Chris, is still unavailable. It's still not released for publication by the CIA. But some of the things that were found are incredible. Down here, I don't bring anyone. This is the cloak and dagger room. This is all the tests that were conducted on me by CIA, Mossad, MI6, MI5, MI6. This is very interesting photograph, Chris. They took me to the Lawrence Livermore Radiation Labs to see if my mind can trigger a nuclear bomb. That's where they build nuclear weapons. This is when Al Gore took me to Geneva to bombard the Russian Yuli Vorontsov to sign the nuclear arms reduction treaty, which actually worked. These are all my telephones, my CIA BlackBerry, and these are the scientists that tested me.
I heard a story where you were asked to describe what was on someone's desk. You recall this?
Yeah, of course. There were two CIA tests with me. One was a guy called Kit Green, who sat in Langley, Virginia.
One afternoon, I got a telephone call on my desk in the headquarters building.
I was at SRI in Palo Alto. Now, this is a few thousands of kilometers away, coast to coast. Hal Puthoff tells Kit Green, the CIA man, that I can see things from afar. And Kit Green says, no, he can't.
The phone call initially was on what we call the red line. It was a classified line. I got a phone call at headquarters. It was the chief scientist of the laboratory at Stanford Research Institute, and he was talking about other aspects of Uri Geller's capabilities. And I, of course, said, well, what other kinds of things are you talking about? And without much of a pause, the scientist said, well, he says he can see things at a distance. And I said, no, he can't.
And Hal Puthoff says, yes, he can. So Kid Green pulls something off his shelf.
He said, okay, I'm sitting at my desk at CIA, Langley, Virginia. I will put something on my desk and let's see if Uri can get it. We didn't tell Uri what this was all about. We couldn't admit to him that we're working with CIA. We just said we had a scientific colleague on the East Coast, and we'd like to see if this remote viewing that you do, which typically we've been doing locally, works over long distance. And he's going to put something on his desk, like for you to describe it.
And I picked up a book, which is the same book that...
All right, everybody, I just wanted to throw it in here that for entertainment purposes only for the YouTube algorithm. So, yeah, remember, like and subscribe. Yeah. Back to the video.
that I had on my desk. He said, well, seeing something kind of strange.
So he sat there and he scribbled on paper and crumpled up and threw it away, scribbled some more, threw it away. Finally scribbled something down and says, well, I don't know what to think. It looks like I have made a drawing of a pan of scrambled eggs, and yet I have the word architecture. What he handed us was a sheet of paper that had this scrambled eggs look and the word architecture written across the top.
I later got a copy of that drawing, and I was astonished to find that what he had drawn maybe does look like scrambled eggs, but it was a cross-section of the human brain.
But what blew his mind is I told him that the word architectural is coming in very strongly, and that's exactly what he wrote on that page, because he was studying something about biological warfare.
I was looking at biological warfare effect on the nervous system of a threat virus. And I'd written in my notes, book, Architecture of a Viral Infection.
We then, or he then, they did tremendous analysis to see is there any chance that there were any cues over the telephone lines and so on. That was a genuine result. And there were others like that we did that we've never published, but certainly convinced us that he has ability.
Why didn't you publish things like that?
Because of direct CIA involvement.
The other test that nobody knows really, Casey was the head of the CIA. So I'm living in Connecticut at that. Note, I told him, I feel a dagger with white handle. And he was holding a dagger with an ivory handle. And this is Casey, the head of the CIA. Anyhow, so whoever believes or not believe, doesn't matter anymore, you know? Oscar Wilde, Chris, 100 years ago said this. He said, there's only one worse thing in life than being talked about. And that's not being talked about. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. Watch the spoon bend. Bye.
I did a special for ABC at one of their studios out by the airport. The problem was when my wife and I arrived the night before, friends picked us up, and the only restaurant still open was the Crab at LAX. It looks like a big flying saucer on legs. And when they had a woman they took out of the audience, and they gave her money and a film crew and a helicopter and told her she could go anywhere in the area and call in when the cameras were there. She had a film crew. The whole time I'm in the room, I am being bombarded in my head by LAX restaurant, which is right across the parking lot. Can you draw where she is? And up until that point, all I'm getting is LAX restaurant. So I remembered something. It's a rule I have when I teach people. It's trust the system. And I heard this very loud voice in my head. It said, trust the system. So I drew a picture of the LAX restaurant. And they looked at it and said, wow, you know, that's right across the parking lot. And I said, yeah, and I was there last night for dinner. And I'm saying all these things about how it could be wrong. And they told her to turn on the camera, and she walked in. She had been having coffee at the LAX restaurant because she's scared of helicopters. And so I absolutely nailed it. So they break for commercial, and there's these feet running behind the curtain all the way around the studio's round. So they're going all the way around like this. And Yuri pops out of the curtain, runs up on the stage and grabs my hand and goes, that is the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my whole life, and he's pumping my hand. I said, thank you, Yuri, it's nice coming from you. And he runs off the stage, and they come back from commercial. Does that say much?
Indeed, a film never proves anything. Rather, this film gives us the opportunity to share with the viewer observations of phenomena that, in our estimation, clearly deserve further study.
Say what you want about Uri Geller, but the man has fascinated and captivated an audience for decades. And much like remote viewing, the tales of Uri's incredible abilities still remain a mystery. Now, before I leave Virginia, I had to ask Joe about one thing. At this point, there is no doubt that the work that Dr. May did and Joe and the rest of the people at SRI was valuable to someone, whether it be to scientists or to secret agencies. They've replicated and produced valuable intel. That is a fact. But what still blows my mind today is probably the most interesting remote viewing story that ever existed.
And I ripped the end off and pulled out a sheet of paper, and it said, Mars, 1 million BC.
I share map tips with millions on TikTok, but today I'm sharing tips about safety. TikTok has over 50 preset safety and privacy settings to protect teens. Plus, as a parent, I set up family pairing to help shape my teen's experience on the app. I can see their followers and who they follow, further restrict content that's not right for them, and even set screen time limits. So they're not on TikTok when they shouldn't be. Because
that was interesting stuff, folks. Very interesting stuff. Remember, like and subscribe. If you like this type of content, let me know. I'll try to keep posting it. Yeah. But the stuff, I put the thing in the ticker right there for you guys to see. So contact me if you want to do the money thing. I'm not asking for money. I don't care about the money. But hey, if you want to help support the channel, it's what helps this keep going. So yeah. But y'all have a good night. I'm gonna end the stream. Please check out Matthew Williams' channel, which is The Secret Vault. And yeah, I will catch you on the what do you got? The flip side, you guys. Let me finish it on this. And yeah. Y'all have a good night, and yeah. Peace.